our next speaker is going to have a more specific focus. It's no secret, we all want to drive business growth, but how can we do it more efficiently and specifically using artificial intelligence? Now, some short years ago, there are these lead generation systems which would typically be manual, that tedious, costly, not cost value effective in terms of our time process is now being driven by AI and opening up a whole new array of opportunities to do so. And the next guest who's going to be gracing our stage to speak on this has a wealth of experience from Silicon Valley and beyond. He is the co-founder and CEO of Kundal, and he is going to be sharing with you how you can indeed unlock a whole new era of client acquisition tactics. Please welcome to the stage Joel Kapt.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this warm introduction, and super happy to be here again this year. Now, over the past 12 months, I think we all experienced how AI changed the way we live, the way we work. Yesterday was my mom's 65th birthday, and even my grandma asked me something about ChatGPT, so I guess it must be real. The change has happened. But especially when it comes to lead generation as well, AI really opened up completely new possibilities, which we did not have last year, actually. Now, I heard this terminology AI already 10 times in the previous presentation. Whoever worked with me in the past knows that I'm a very practical person. So this is not going to be a keynote about much AI blah blah and large language models and more theory. No, it's going to be very practical. So everyone in here, no matter if you're like having a young business or already a larger business, should be able to take something away from this and already start implementing that tomorrow. In 2017, I joined a back then young company called Beekeeper. It's a B2B SaaS business from Zurich. And we scaled from 30 to 90 people in 6 months, and later on to over 200 people. And when I joined the business, one of my first missions was to build a lead generation system that was actually able to cope with this ever-growing sales team, this ever-growing hungry sales team, and their ask to get more leads. Also, in the recent startup readiness benchmark, which we did this year, we asked more than 170 businesses what their biggest pain point is. And the result was that they all need to have more leads. So it doesn't matter if you're like a very small business and you need leads to win your first clients, or if you're a larger, more established business like Beekeeper, lead generation seems to be a challenge which persists throughout the different growth stages. Now, there are many different ways on how we can create leads. There are various different channels and methods which we can use. However, whenever budget and money or maybe funding is getting tight, or also when the current systems are just not producing the amount of leads that we actually need, what often happens is that people fall back to the old school way of creating leads, especially in the B2B sector, which means picking up the phone or writing emails to people. Now, very often, those businesses think, well, it's basically free. I don't spend any ad budget on this. But when you run the math and you just have 3 salespeople in your business and they spend 1 hour per day doing exactly this, you're going to end up investing over $50K a year in manual lead research and calling people. And that's quite a lot of money. So what's the next alternative many businesses actually put their attention to? It's working with data providers. So we all know these massive platforms where you spend between 10 to 20K a year to get access to very big databases, lead databases. And they have millions of records. However, when you take a look at how many of those records are actually really within your ideal customer profile, meaning the customer segment that is truly valuable to you, and then you even look at what are the actual records they have, for your particular customer profile, then you realize that there is very little data. We usually calculate with a 20 to 30% coverage, meaning when I purchase such a database, I only find around 20 to 30% of the data I actually need. That's not really cool. What's the next step? Well, a beekeeper, we started buying one database after the other. You can imagine where this goes and how expensive this is. Luckily, in late 2023, things really changed. AI already existed before, but it was not until late 2023 with the recent developments where it reached a level where it became truly reliable. So that means today, I don't need to tap into all those different sources anymore, these different databases and patch together data. I can now aggregate everything in one single tool and also include the mechanics of AI to analyze the data and give me information that is truly meaningful to me, which before had to be done manually by your marketing or your sales team. Now, I promise to be practical with you, so let's jump into an example. So what you see here is just an Excel file. It's actually supposed to be a GIF and show you some more pictures. Apparently it's not working, but don't worry, I'm going to explain. But it's basically an Excel file where you just see a list of accounts and the domains. So let's imagine we define our ideal customer profile. We go on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, we put in the filters, and I get like a list of all the accounts I can potentially sell to. Now, that does not help me a lot, right? Because I need the information of these accounts. So what we can do these days now is the following. What you see here is a very powerful tool. It's called Clay, and it works like an aggregator. So imagine a tool that sits on meta level where I can connect any kind of data source to it, which can perform something which we call an AI web search and find any information which is actually out there in the World Wide Web. So basically, I only need to copy-paste the company name and the domain name into this table. Imagine we do that for maybe 100 records. And we programmed the tool the following, that for every single column, we defined what kind of data point do I want to generate and how should the tool find that data point. So imagine we insert a list of 100 businesses, an AI web search starts, it gives me the LinkedIn profile, and then I can extract all the information out of LinkedIn about this company, such as industry, follower counts, location. I can connect other tools, for example, Built With, that also gives me information about technology the company is using, because maybe I'm, for example, only selling to businesses that are using HubSpot, so that's very important to me. I can find that out. I can also connect other tools like SEMrush to get more data about traffic, and I can also connect OpenAI to not just produce static information about a business, but also get answers to open-stated questions, such as, please go to the website, analyze the website, tell me if this business is selling to B2B or to B2C, or if it's a marketplace. I can even go there and tell OpenAI, please analyze the website, and then tell me who this business is selling to. So basically, the entire process, which we did before manually with humans, going into the web, going to Google, finding the website, looking up information on the website, we can now completely streamline by doing that. So what does that mean? Well, it means, first of all, we have huge efficiency gains. We don't need to do that manually anymore. Second of all, we're also getting a way better data coverage. So out of the entire market that exists, we have a guesstimate of what our ideal customer profile is. And so far, we then use different methods trying to attract them towards our brand. But now, with this possibility, we can, within seconds, actually produce all the necessary information of all the potential target accounts that are out there and that you can potentially sell to. So it's no longer a coverage of 20 or 30%. It's not an incomplete list. We can get full control on all the accounts that are out there that we can potentially sell to and produce all the information that we need. So the next question is, well, that's nice, but what does it help me, right? How do I now engage with this account? Do I send them like a letter, or what do I do? Of course, these tools can also go further. I cannot just produce information about the accounts. I can program the tool further to produce any information about the contact as well. We programmed the table in this case to give me all the account information, but I also want to have the name, the title, and the email of the CEO. Does not matter if it's the CEO, if we're selling to an IT manager or something else, you can program this, right? That it produces the exact account and contact information of the potential buyers which you actually want to sell to. This can be 1 contact per account, it can be 3, it can be 10. You can automate this entire process. Now with the AI, as mentioned before, we cannot just produce the static information, but now I can also take those data points from the account, I can take the data points from the person, and I can feed that into the system so that the system writes me a completely personalized and customized message specifically towards this person, which you see here on the right-hand side. And you can imagine that doing the research and writing such an email can take you at least half an hour. Now, you can do it in an automated fashion, and you can include way more information than you would do that if you do that manually. I'm not going to go deeper here into the enrichment part, but I can happily explain more of that later if you want to scan the QR code and add your questions there. The question now is, we now want this unique possibility to produce all this information. All the account, all the buyers, we know them. I don't need to go fishing anymore. The only thing I need to do is I need to understand how can I build a system which is specifically targeted towards these buyers and which I can also scale as a business. Now here again, there are various different methods, of course, which you can use to do that. In our case and with our clients, when you're in B2B, there are mainly 3 things which we do that create you plenty enough of leads. And the first thing, the first layer, how we call it, is network awareness. Now I have all this data, right? But I don't just want to like blast some spam emails towards this person. They don't know me, it's completely cold, and they probably will not react. But because I now specifically know who those people are, I can also use automation on LinkedIn that is sending 20, 25 connection requests every day from my salespeople to those buyers, not trying to sell them, just try to connect with them, say hello so that they see the name, that they see the brand, and so that when you actually also post content on LinkedIn or somewhere else, that it's not your friends that see your content, but it's actually the buyers who are supposed to see your content. So we're doing a warm-up of the market. We're warming up our market, creating brand awareness. The next layer we call key campaigns. So that means we define something of value, something of meaningful value towards the buyer. This could be a free assessment. If you're in higher deal sizes, it might be an exclusive event, something that is truly meaningful and specifically targeted towards these people. And this is then where we start directly engaging with the person. This is where we reach them over email or over LinkedIn, but now you're no longer just a nobody reaching out, but they actually already saw your name, they saw your brand, there's some sort of connection, and the conversion rates and the chances that they open your email and they actually respond are way bigger than before. And the last layer are the so-called intent signals. With the AI, we can now also measure what's going on in the market. That means I cannot just produce boring information about the account, but I can track anything that is happening. For example, media coverage, job role changes, new people joining the company, tech stack changes, all kind of things that might be very relevant to you as a business and a reason to reach out for them. So just to give you some examples here, I can track if there are like any new awards coming out, recognitions, if the person changes job, if a new person changes the company you're trying to sell to. I can take all of that information and use that as a very highly relevant trigger to reach out, offering them something that is truly valuable to them in a specific situation. So let's take a step back and try to understand again, how does that look like and feel like over a year when I actually build up such a system. So again, we have all the data we need. We only need to find out how do we interact with those people. First layer, building awareness. We built that system once, and it will always run. You only need to feed it with more information, with more data, but once you build it, it will always run while you are at sleep. Constantly creating awareness towards your brand. It's amazing. Second layer, key campaigns. If you're a smaller business, you're probably going to have one key campaign per quarter. One larger thing that you try to push, that you take as a reason why you should reach out to people. Event, assessment, some sort of lead magnet, whatever it is. You reach out directly to the people, and because you're very specific and it has value, and because they know you already, the reaction is usually way more positive than if you do that cold. Of course, we combine the two. So when I build this awareness on LinkedIn, I start this key campaign, of course, then also the content I produce and the content I post is supporting the key campaign. And the last thing are the intent signals. So these are things I don't steer in terms of quantity. These are things that are just happening everywhere in the different accounts. But because I built the systems and the workflow, they're happening completely automated. Every time one of my champions changes jobs to another company, I measure that, the workflow triggers, and the personalized message is going out to this person, potentially creating a new sales opportunity. Now, you don't need to have this entire system. Even only if you have parts of these systems, it can actually already work really, really well. But of course, as you see, if you build the system entirely, you have various different angles on how you actually engage with a person and engage with an account that ultimately then creates the conversion down the line. In this particular example, we built this engine for a client of ours, and it's now 12 months since we started, and in these 12 months, the client booked more than 400 calls, closed 600K in revenue, only for pilot projects, which together reflect a lifetime value of more than 6 million. Now I get often the question, yeah, you know, this outbound stuff, that is nice, it works for small deal sizes, but not for enterprise. This client is selling average deal sizes of more than 100K. Why does it work for them as well? Because it's targeted, it's relevant, and it actually has value what they offer to their buyer personas. This is why they react to their outreach, and this is why they convert really, really well. Sometimes the conversion doesn't happen directly. Sometimes you launch a campaign, they see their email, they never react, they see you on LinkedIn, they never react. But 6 months later, this one intent signal workflow triggers, it's exactly the right timing, and they react, and they're going to come back to you. And the process is going to be different, because they already know you now for 6 months, they saw your content, they see what you do, and they're way more ready to buy than before. Now, a question I get asked often, or a statement that I hear often, you know, with all this funky and nice developments of the AI, in the future, there's only going to be AI talking to AI. You know, you write an email with AI, and then your inbox, an AI analyzes the stuff and then replies, right? So it's only going to be bots. And there's more and more spam coming because of this. I personally disagree. I think if all businesses would put the effort into building something like this, meaning being very specific, very targeted, and truly offering something of value to the buyers, then there would be less spam annoying us, and there would way more value be created, first of all, for your prospects, and because they get more value, there will be way more value for you as well, because you're going to have way better conversions and find more clients. And with that, I already ended my keynote. If you like the topic. Tomorrow there's going to be a workshop at 3:30 where you're going to go into more practice on how to actually do that. Or also come by the booth and have a chat with me later on. Looking forward. And if there are any questions, I think this is what we will dive into.